Hi, welcome back to today's Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. I'm Claire, your Finance Transformation Expert.
And Richard Beaumont, Procurement Expert.
And today we're diving into the topic of embracing real-time data for your finance and procurement teams. And Richard, data is something we've talked about a lot, isn't it?
It is. And you know what, we seem to be talking not only about data a lot, but also, we're going to frame this in the terms of finance reporting, but actually we'll see not only is that broader than finance, but actually it's got a direct impact on the procurement world as well. But it just seems incredible that we are still talking about data.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that is we consistently see this as an issue that's insufficiently addressed by the typical clients that we deal with.
Like worse than that. I mean, actually, January is the time when a whole flurry of various consultancies produce their, what are the priorities for chief procurement officers for the coming year. And guess what? Cleaning data and getting insight quality data is top 3 recommendation pretty much across the board. So here we are. So, okay, all right. Let's, as I say, we're gonna take this in terms of, because obviously I love talking about it, finance reporting.
Yeah.
So let's just set the scene. I mean, why do you think that having access to real-time data is so beneficial in the arena of finance reporting? I mean, what is it that the impacts that it brings?
Yeah, well, certainly you need data to be able to do your revenue reporting, your expense reporting, your cash flow reporting, your profitability reporting. Cash. Being able to have a handle on your cash is of supreme importance, especially if you have external lending.
Yep.
So all those things, without real-time data, it makes it really difficult to do. And if you're a finance team that's spending, 2 weeks, let's say, cobbling together data from different systems that are constructed under different data models, and then trying to make sense of that retrospectively, that's basically half a month that you're just backward looking, and you're not being a good business partner to the rest of the business in helping them drive the performance of the business.
Right.
So
makes sense.
Okay. So then, if you think about both finance and procurement, Richard, how can real-time data enhance decision making for both finance and procurement teams? What do you see the similarities?
I get to make decisions for finance. Okay. All right. I'm going to take this in 3 chunks, which is the sort of the obvious 2, if you like, which is, first and foremost, and we talked about, budgeting and planning in an earlier coffee break. It's the old super tank thing. If you can't see that something is going wrong until 3 to 6 months down the track, how can you possibly change, your strategy or your budget priorities to make sure things are going to work? So real-time data allows faster decision making as to whether you're on track or whether you need to pull the levers to change direction. And it applies just as much if we're talking about, investment decisions. If you think about the latest trends on, how people make a side hustle, right? By the time people are watching something on Instagram, the moment's gone, because the people that made the money made it 6 months ago, 12 months ago. It's no difference in business. If you haven't got real-time data that show you the trend, whether you're talking about a commodity investment or an M&A investment, if it isn't current data, the chances are your decision is going to be affected by it. But the thing is, it also crosses over into my world in procurement, because let's face it, much as I might like to pretend otherwise, finance data is procurement data. So up-to-date pictures of spend, or up-to-date pictures of supplier performance or vendor, or risk profiles that are coming because of, either bigger geopolitical factors or trends in pricing. I can only make good decisions and change what I'm doing in procurement if I can see what's happening as quickly as possible, when it starts to happen. And of course, as we touched on many times right at the start of the Procurement and Finance Coffee Break. And in fact, we're going to be doing an interview, our second threesome later on today. ESG data, finance is increasingly picking up responsibility for doing things like Scope 3 reporting. And again, where we've got committed targets on reducing CO2, which we've declared to shareholders, we can't demonstrate control over that if we're not working off current data. So, it's the importance, not just being able to manage the business day to day, but also to be able to make the big decisions, is super critical. But I guess, look, the thought that's just gone straight in my head is, right, you'd kind of assume that, you could forgive small businesses, but large companies, you'd kind of thought they'd have got a grip on this. But I suspect you're going to tell me they haven't. And if they haven't, what are they got to think about when they're, when they want to try to adopt it?
So, I would say that's a correct assumption. You go from sort of smallish companies, 25 million turnover, to, let's say, 500 million turnover, mid-cap, let's say. They will typically have lower maturity of processes, not as good integrations, because they're you only, the larger you grow, ideally the more mature your processes become, the greater you can benefit from economies of scale, the greater you can standardize, drive efficiencies, be able to think about things like having shared service centers where you try and lower the cost of finance per transaction as much as possible. But having the idea or the notion that if you're a small to medium-sized company, you'll have quite immature processes, but if you're a medium to large cap company or a large corporate, they'll definitely have mature processes with integrated systems. You can't make that assumption because really I've seen large corporates that are, some which are quite advanced, have got integrated ERPs and EPM systems, got good data models, have rolling upgrades for their systems as well. But then you've got some that have really, I think, failed to invest in their IT landscape and architecture, have lots of different systems, some still on mainframes, believe it or not, legacy mainframes, and they don't have one data model. So as a result of that, both their finance and procurement teams spend a lot of time trying to cobble together data. And I wouldn't say it's just small to medium-sized enterprises, it's large caps too. And for me, the reason why, again, data is really important to talk about is, as I said, if you're spending your time trying to understand your data, you don't have timely data, you just can't be a good business partner that drives performance for your organisation. And on top of that, we've got new technology coming out all the time with AI. I expect to see embedded AI in ERP and EPM tools soon, and also RPA as well. Where you have sort of chatbots or automated procedures to make routine tasks, easier and automated. And again, if you have inconsistent end-to-end data that isn't integrated well, it's very hard to make use of that technology. So I really see kind of this new technology as it's evolving, really creating a big gap between the people that have moved to integrated systems, one data model, and transformed their finance and procurement teams, and those that haven't. Because the symptom now would be that those businesses that haven't probably have a higher headcount in finance and procurement because they've got more people doing manual processes, and it probably there's other metrics about that you could look at about how much that finance and procurement team are finding an added value to the rest of the organisation. Are they effectively paying for themselves in value add every year. And I would suspect that they're not, because they're doing backward looking administrative data manipulation. So there's a few reasons why I think, it's really important, even though people think, oh, data, IT systems are, sometimes it's only until it gets super, super painful that people are willing to think about a transformation project. But I would really say, think about it as a business priority.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, if I just look through the narrow lens, one subset of financial data, if I just look at spend, because obviously that's where my focus is, let's face it, everybody's spend data is a disaster. That's a huge generalization, but actually most companies' spend data is a disaster, and it's a disaster for exactly the reasons you've just highlighted. You've got legacy data, which is constructed differently, different data dimensions. We've got different systems and different technology which are not which are just not interoperable, and we've got a perceived really high cost of investing to get the support to fix it. And what you see, I think, is this typical kind of skipping, which is, there's a need to make a decision. You get a consultancy in to come and do a project for you. So what do? They sort your data and they give you a clean data set, whether it, in general, not just spend data. You action it. Guess what? 6 months later, because you didn't change any of your underlying systems, you're exactly back where you were, and it's a mess again. Out there now, the support, and we've talked about this before, prioritizing sorting your data, as far as I'm concerned, is the number one priority, because all of the tools that you want to use going forward will not work if your data isn't sorted. And the only way you're going to sort data is with the latest generation of tools that embed AI. I mean, I've just done a project with a client. I work with a company called Procurement. They bring in AI technology to not only clean, but then give you forward real-time data. So once they've put the filters, the design in place, the AI continues to manage your forward-going data so that you've got visibility.
Oh, that's right.
And that's the only way that you can make it work. And I guess, look, so we know it's a big task, and at face value it can appear expensive, but the bottom line is the cost of not doing it is enormous. Bad decisions, bad investment, bad perspective, and you're blindsided on risk. So let's be positive then.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that I'm an enthusiastic CFO.
Yeah.
I've invested the money and I have transitioned to real-time data.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think that means then? From your perspective in finance, what do you think that means in terms of what, therefore, sort of financial reporting will look like going forward, if it's got the benefit of high quality real time data?
Yeah, I mean, what we said there sounded a bit negative, but I have seen one company that really did have excellent processes.
I've exaggerated a bit. So.
Yeah, but I would say broadly, we're on.
Right,
let's say 95% of companies are not that great. But I did see one company that was really excellent in its processes, its BAU processes for identifying, a global master vendor supplier. Do we have a global master for that vendor? And then, as each country wanted to use a division of that vendor, let's say it was Coca-Cola or someone like that. It wasn't Coca-Cola, but you imagine it, a global supplier.
Big and complex.
Yes.
Yeah.
So exactly that point when you said about being able to analyse volume and spend against a global supplier. Of course, you want to negotiate discounts, right? But if every country sets it up its own version and it's not linked to a global master, it's really hard to see on a global basis. Yeah. Even worse if each country sent up multiple local versions.
Not that anyone ever does that, of course. Never see a breeding systems. Yeah.
But to your point, I think predictive analytics and automated integration, certainly predictive analytics, where perhaps say if it's take like cash flow forecasting, I see very soon that based on AI will be able to say, like, based on your your sales forecast.
Yeah.
We expect these to be the cash flows for the next, let's say,
Right.
13 weeks. And it could perhaps state some assumptions. It could say, so based on the assumption your DSO remains constant at so many days, and your creditor payment terms remain constant at so many days. And it'd probably be able to give you some sensitivity to those cash flow forecasts, because inevitably your DSO does go up and down a bit. Perhaps it creeps up slowly over the course of the year, and towards the end of the year you give a big push to get all your cash through the door and reduce your DSO. And perhaps you also, a lot of companies also try and push their payment terms towards the end of the year to make their balance sheet look a bit healthier with the cash position. So that's where I expect we'll soon be with terms of embedded AI and predictive analytics within ERP tools, and that will make FP&A roles, treasurer roles a lot easier, because you're not sort of manually working out, okay, what's the forecast, what did we do, what does it look like. It does mean that those skills to be able to sense check what it's forecasting will still remain, though.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, at the end of the day, it's there might be some that say, well, okay, look, this is a big investment. Is it truly possible? And I think all you've got to do is just look at lean manufacturing, particularly in automotive. To understand that absolutely harnessing real-time data to be able to drive efficiency and performance absolutely is possible. So if we can do it in one domain, one function, we can absolutely do it with data in the other functions. We've just got to be prepared to make that investment.
And I think the last thing I would say is just don't wait until you're absolutely in pain and your procurement and finance functions are sort of limping along. You think, God, I really have to do something about data now, because it's not something you can fix overnight. It is something that probably requires an 18-month program of work to look at historically, come up with a new data model that's going to capture all your requirements. So do plan ahead. Think about, how is my company growing? How good is my data now? If I expect to double turnover in the next 2 to 3 years, and my data is not really sufficient now, and I have to spend lots of time manipulating, that suggests you really need to think about it now. Don't think, oh, well, in 5 years, 2 to 5 years time, we'll address it then when the company's grown. Think about it now, because you've got to factor in the time and investment to get it to where you need it to be.
Right. Well, there we go. Okay. Another exciting finance topic.
Yes.
What exciting finance topic are we talking about next?
We've got we're talking about RPA. Some examples of where we can perhaps think about using robotic processors to reduce the cost of procurement or finance.
Is exciting. I'm only being weird. I like talking about finance topics.
Okay. All right. Until next time then. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.